In this topic, control of human behavior has been looked into details. The need for control and steps in control system are some of the things that we are going to discuss. And also, why a control system needs to be effective. We are going to look at that, what it needs, and the essential of an effective system. We are going to highlight those, and we are going to look at what is needed as far as a system is concerned. We are going, first of all, to ask ourselves, what is a system? So what are some of the objectives in this particular unit? So by the end of this lesson, you must be able to define what is human behavior. You must be able to define what is human behavior. You must also be able to give highlights of the importance of controlling the human behavior in an organization. And at the end of the day, the last objective is that you must be able to outline the steps in control of human behavior. So when you talk about control of human behavior, is that we are human beings. All of us, we are human beings. And an organization is usually run by human beings. It is human beings that help the organization to make profits. It is also the human beings that makes the organization make losses. It is also the human beings that make the organization stand still. It is not growing, and it is just there, it is neutral. So human beings are resources that are very important in an organization, because without these resources, some machines cannot run themselves. Like when a computer is placed in front of you, it cannot type itself. It cannot give itself commands. Remember, a computer is a garbage in, garbage out. You give the computer the garbage, it gives back the garbage to you. You give it good information to you. You give it good information, then it gives back the good information. So it's a in, garbage out. So you come to realize that the key aspect or the most important aspect of resource in an organization is a human being. And therefore, this human being has to be controlled. Why does this human being need to be controlled? Because people have got various behaviors. Like, for example, in an organization, we need to control a human being to be coming to work early. Not because if we don't have that control, then this human being might report to work even at 2 p.m., of which it is not beneficial. It's not going to be beneficial so much to some organization. Of course, there are some organizations that people work in shifts. Maybe somebody reported at 8 and the other one will be reporting at around 1 or 2 or something like that. So those are control systems that have been placed in that particular organization. So for an organization to achieve its goals effectively, it needs what we call control of human behavior. Like, for example, we have said time. Time has to be controlled. Human beings have to be controlled in terms of time. So we need to be reporting to work at 7, and we need to be coming, or to be finishing our job at around maybe 5. That is a control system that usually is placed in an organization. And what aids this? Some organizations usually have got what we call the biometric. The biometric is whereby for every employee who reports to work, you place your thumb there, and then the system reads that you have reported to work maybe 7:15, or maybe you have reported to work 7, or you have reported to work 9. So that is a biometric. So that is a computer, or that is a system that has been placed in an organization to actually do what? To actually control timings. Also, when you're going back home after working, you have to sign out in that particular biometric to show the time that you logged in and the time that you logged out when you're going home. That is a system that has been placed in an organization, and systems differ depending on various organizations. But there are those systems that you come to realize that they work in almost all the organizations. For example, like a biometric, it works almost all the organizations. Or I can actually say it works in all organizations. Another example, like if you go to universities, in a class scenario or in a class context, you come to realize that for me to control my students, there must be a register that is going around the class, that Stephen has to sign on today's date that he was in class ABCD, ABCD. Like for example, when you are done with this class, I'll go straight and do what? And look at the register and tick the register that Stephen was present, Yvette was present. Failure to do so, then it means that I'm messing up the system because I'm not inputting the correct figures. Or maybe I write, for example, Stephen was absent and Yvette was also absent. That is messing with the control systems. So therefore, control systems are there. They control the way we dress. For example, there are rules and there are rules in organizations that states how you should dress. There are organizations that when you wear casually, there is no problem. But there are some organizations that are so much strict on how you wear your clothes or on what you put on as you report to work. And there are some organizations that do not even care how you are going to dress. Are you going to dress on casual or are you going to dress on official? They don't care so much, but that is a system. Again, there is also a system on the employees. This one is a HR system on the people that we have employed in our organization. That is, we have a HR system that we can see all the employees that we have employed in our system, and we can also see how much these employees are paid and even their qualifications and even their departments that they are in. So that if the HR manager wants to ask, to call for somebody, he will not go to every department looking for that particular person. He'll actually know that this person is in the department of media, and immediately he will go to that department. Or maybe from the system, he can pick the number of this particular individual and call that person, or pick the email of this particular person and write an email to this individual. So therefore, this is controlling the human behavior. And why are we controlling the human behavior? We are controlling the human behavior so that at the end of the year, at the end of the day, the organization can make profit and we can achieve the aim and the goal and the mission of the organization. Unless there is a question up to that point, that was just an introduction of everything. Yvette, do you have any question? Yvette,
No.
You don't have a question, Stephen?
No.
So therefore, let's look at something. So my introduction is this one, that control of human behavior is important, and it's an important function of management. And the main objective of control is to bring highlights on variation between the standards set and performance, and then take necessary steps to prevent the occurrence of such variation in time. In short, we are saying that everybody has goals in his life. Yvette, what are your goals as far as this course is concerned? What are your goals? Yvette, we are waiting.
To a job.
Mm-hmm.
to make a difference in the world, or maybe let me say in our country, concerning all the media stuff and communication. Yeah.
Steven, what are your goals?
To learn more about management.
To learn more about management. Anyway, that's good.
Yeah.
The reason why I want to know your goals, this is one of your goals that I was expecting people to tell me. Number one of your goal, as far as this particular unit is concerned, or this particular course is concerned, I know you want to get an A, or maybe to get good grades. Remember, everybody has got goals. Even organizations have got their own goals. Maybe your goal is to get an A in this particular in this particular unit. Yvette, maybe your goal is to get a D in this particular unit. So I'm just giving an example. But at the end of the day, you might achieve your goal, or something might happen that hinders you from achieving your goal. Like, for example, if Stephen, your goal was to get an A, then you came and you come and realize that you have gotten a C. Have you achieved your goal? Of course, you have not achieved your goal. Yvette, maybe your aim was to get a C, then you end up getting an A. Have you achieved your goal? Of course, you have achieved your goal by a very huge margin. So therefore, Stephen, we can ask ourselves, my aim was to get an A, and I'm getting maybe a C. What went wrong? So what went wrong is what we call variations. So you need to go down there and ask yourself what went wrong, so that you can get the deviation. After getting the deviation, you're actually saying, I did not meet my goal, so I need to go back and work it out, so that after working it out, then I will check again and see whether I'll be able to achieve my goal. Especially these people who did their KCPE or KCSE and they failed. Maybe they wanted to, there are so many scenarios where a student wanted to get an A, and this student ended up getting a B plus. Then this student says, I'm not satisfied with a B plus. Let me go back and see whether I can get an A. Then this student may fail further and get a C minus, or he may do very well and get maybe an A minus. So you see, this student is going back to check what went wrong. Then after getting that deviation, he aligns things and maybe he achieves his goal, or somebody else will not achieve his goal, because as far as looking for deviation is concerned, he ends up messing things instead of making them right. So that is one thing that we are going to look at. So let's define control. So control has been defined as a process that assures that actual activities, it has been defined that as a process that one assures that actual activities conform to planned activities. It is checking current performance against predetermined standards. This is what I'm saying. You are checking your current performance against what against the goals that you had set for yourself. So it is checking current performance against predetermined standards contained in the plan. So everybody has a plan in life. Even organizations have plans in life. Even animals, they usually have plans in life. So if you are living and you don't have a plan in life, then I'm wondering, I'm so much wondering. So therefore, we can say that controlling is determining what is being accomplished. That is evaluating the performance, and if necessary, applying the measures so that the performance may take place in accordance to laid down plans. So if you finish this course and maybe your goal was to get an A, and then you end up getting a C, then just know that there is a deviation that need to be worked on. Of course, getting a C is passing. You might not be given that chance again to repeat, because in a university, even if you get a D, you proceed to the next level. It actually shows that you have passed. Unless you get an E, that's when you're given another chance of doing a supplementary exam. Steps in control process, there are 3 steps. I'm going to put them down there. There are 3 steps in control process. So there are 3 steps in control process. Number 1, you have to establish standards. You need to establish the standards. Establishing a standard is simply coming up with what we call goals. You establish standards. Like, for example, establishing standard number 1 can be, in an organization, workers should come here at 7 a.m. up to 5 p.m. So a worker should be reporting to work at 7 a.m. and going home at 5 p.m. That is a standard that you have established. Or maybe you establish a standard that all workers from Monday to, let's say, for example, from Monday to Friday should be in official clothing. That is a standard that you have established. Or a standard can be all workers that are joining us that are 5 years and less, 5 years and less since they were employed, or 5 years and less experience, will be earning will be earning 30,000. You see, that is a standard that you have established. So if a worker is employed and is less than 5 years and he is earning 50,000, then just know that the system has been messed. So number 1, we have to establish, first of all, we have to establish standards. And then after establishing the standards, we have to measure and compare actual results against the standards. Just like we have said, Stephen, if your plan is to get an A, at the end of this semester, you do an exam and you get a C. Then this time round, you are measuring and you're comparing the actual results, which is a C, against your standards, which was an A. And then you're going to ask yourself, did I meet the standard? Did I meet the goals? No, Stephen, you did not meet the goals. So what do you need to do? You need to go to step 3, take corrective actions. Take corrective actions. Go back and check what went wrong. What made me not to achieve my goals? Work on those corrective actions. Then start from the word go. Establish another standard. Measure and compare the actual results against the standard. Then if you measure and compare results against the established standards and you find that you actually met the standards, then there is no way you can go back to point 3, that is taking corrective actions. So you just proceed to something else. I hope we understand. If there is a question, you just switch on your microphone and ask a question. So therefore, because those are what we call the steps in control process, and I've gone through them in a nutshell, very fast. So then, okay, the notes that I'm going to provide you have got the 3 steps discussed in details, but I've discussed them in a layman's language so that Stephen and Yvette can understand. So that when you're going through the notes, you can actually understand, bearing in mind the examples that I gave, you can actually understand what they mean. So let's look at what the reason why we need control. Why do we need control? Even maybe we can start with you. Tell us why we need control now that you have the background of the whole topic. Why do you need control, Moema?
Everything in point.
To ensure that everything is in point. Yvette, why would you need control? Or you don't need control?
To avoid maybe confusion in an organization.
Yes, to avoid confusion. What else? Also remember, even at home, there is what we call control from our parents. There is that time you are supposed to be in the... Continue, Yvette. To do what?
To ensure discipline.
Yeah, to ensure there is discipline. That is, so discipline is the standard. So even at home, we have what we call control. So there is a time you're supposed to report. I mean, there are some times or some time limit that you're not supposed to extend. Like you are coming late from school or from wherever you are coming from. You're coming home at, let's say, for example, you're coming home at 12 a.m. You see, that one is weird. Your parents already reported at home very early at around 5:30, maybe at the person who came late, maybe the mother came at around 9, and you are arriving at 12 a.m. So we need to control even in our homes so that standards can be maintained. So the reason we need control, number one, we need control to measure progress. We need to measure progress. We need to measure progress. The reason why I'm saying we need to measure progress is this. I'm giving an example. We need to know how many classes Yvette attended. We need to know how many classes Yvette missed. We need to know in some other areas like finance, whether Yvette has paid the whole fees. We need to know whether Yvette has the qualification to join this particular class, and so on and so forth. So we need to measure progress. That Yvette started from diploma year 1, semester 1, and in the next like 2.5 years, Yvette will be in semester 5. So we need to measure progress. We need to know Yvette, what grade did she get when she was doing media management, introduction to mass comm. We need to know everything about Yvette as far as learning is concerned. So we need to measure progress. We need to know how far we have gone and how far we need to go. We also need control to uncover deviations. Yeah, we need control to know what made us not to achieve the goals that we had set, or not to achieve the standards that we had set. So we need control to uncover deviations. Like, for example, if employees are using biometric to sign in and sign out as far as working is concerned, we need to know whether the system that we are using is able to serve us very well. Does it have failures? Or does sometimes it goes off because of some technicalities or something? So we need to uncover those deviations so that we can be able to meet the standards that we have set as an organization. We also need control to indicate corrective actions. We need control to indicate corrective actions. For example, you have realized that you are not able to meet your standards because of 1 or 2 or 3 reasons. So the control system must be able to indicate corrective action. The system that you are using can be able to give you what action should you take in such a circumstance. So there are some reasons, or there are some things that may make you not to achieve what? Or to be off target, or not to achieve what we call your goals. So there may be some reason that may make you not to achieve your goals. Some of the reasons that may make you not to achieve your goals are sometimes the control system might be complex. So there are some major events, that's what I'm saying, that may pull one off target, or that may bring about what we call deviations. So in such a circumstance, or this, we are talking about these, what we call reasons. So reason number 1 is complexity. Sometimes when the issue is too complex, one may fail to understand it. Like, for example, if you have put biometric where people will be logging in and out in a place of work, the system might be too complex and people may fail to understand it and therefore ignore it. They are not using it. So in such a situation, the person needs a close monitoring. You need to monitor that person closely. There are even some systems that we adopt as an organization, and these ones are softwares that we buy from manufacturers that can actually help us in an organization. You come to realize that there is what we call, people tend to avoid them at first because maybe they are complex. So in such a situation, as an employer, or you should actually monitor what we call, you should monitor that situation closely. Another reason might be mistakes. Another reason why we can go off target is it can be mistakes. How now? Mistakes, usually we define them as erroneous judgment, which may be done within the knowledge or outside the knowledge of the performance. So mistakes are defined as erroneous judgment, which may be done within the knowledge or outside the knowledge of the performance. Also, they may happen when a problem is incorrectly diagnosed. So if you diagnose a problem incorrectly, mistakes can happen. Just like we said, you had some standards in high school. Maybe you wanted to get an A-, then you ended up getting a B+. And then you realized, no, a B+ is not my standard. Then you went back and you redid the paper. Redoing the paper does not mean that you can achieve that target. You will achieve that standard. So some people did the paper and they still failed because the mistakes that they did when they got a B+ is this, they have multiplied. The mistakes have multiplied to an extent that this time round they are getting a C minus, or this time round they are passing. I mean, they are getting a C minus. If they work on the mistakes very well, then that means they will achieve the standard that they had set for themselves. So a problem, once the problem is incorrectly diagnosed, mistakes happen. So unless you diagnose the problem correctly, that's when mistakes will not happen. So another reason why events may pull one off target or may make one not to achieve the standards is complexity. Sometimes the system might be very complex, or the thing that you're being told to do is very complex. Or maybe the system that the organization has acquired is very complex to an extent that there is something you are missing in between as you interact with the system. Another one is lack of knowledge and skills. This is another thing. I don't know that where Yvette went. Yvette sijui ameenda wapi. So another reason might be lack of knowledge. You don't know how to use something. So lack of knowledge is another thing. And lack of knowledge can make you to be off target because you'll be doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. You're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. So that is, we are saying that when one is not well trained to perform a piece of work, he may deviate from the standard set. So see, these kind of people should usually get proper training from the organization. Also, another reason, you have a question you can ask. Is social background. Your social background may make you to be off target. Social background may make you to be off target. Maybe Steven, you can tell us how can this affect you? How can social background affect you? Or when you talk about social background, what do we mean?
Where you come from.
Where you come from. Where you come from matters a lot. Where you come from matters a lot. Like if you're coming from Mashambani, from maybe you have been, okay, I'm not saying that this is, it is possible, but it happens. If you come from a rural area and you have been raised, that is where you are born, and you have been raised speaking maybe Kikuyu throughout and doing things in a very funny way, then when you come to town and you're told to do something, you will not know, maybe for example, how these things are done in a modern way, and you might end up messing the system, or actually messing the system. I'm not getting, like for example, you need to be exposed. It is very important for people to be exposed. That a situation whereby one is not able to know what he should know may lead to ignorance. Like we are talking about dressing. You have just gotten a job in the city and you are reporting for the first time to work. And maybe the rule number one of how you should dress officially. Then you end up coming to work dressed in a very funny way. You see, it is lack of exposure that makes you look like that. But when you look at yourself, you see you are dressed properly. you are up to the task. But when other people look at you, they end up laughing, or some may end up being ashamed. Like your manager might be ashamed of you, the way you are dressed, and this is your first day at work. So they may call you and do what? And talk to you. Again, lack of exposure as far as biometric is concerned, which is a tool for system for control. I mean, for control of human behavior, you might ignore it. You might ignore it. So another reason why we may fall off target is delegation. Delegation simply means you might tell somebody to do your work. You might tell someone, like for example, Stephen, I may decide I have Stephen here and I'm suffering a lot, and Stephen can assist me in maybe writing up or maybe keying in students' marks, not for this group, but for a different group. So he can be a source of labor or something. He can be a human resource. So I delegate that work. I tell Stephen, now, Stephen, you're going to do this for me. When I come back, and then you send it to me, or you just send it directly to my manager. So Stephen might do that work and do it wrongly. So delegation sometimes can bring about deviation. So let's look at the essential of effective control. For us to have effective control, what do we need? For us to have a very good effective control, remember, we are looking at standards. For us to have effective control, what do we need? Number one, the system that you're bringing us, or the system that you're introducing to us as an organization or to the employees, must be suitable. Must be suitable. So if you're bringing what we call a biometric, it must be suitable to everybody. If you're bringing a timetable in a class where a student can tick and sign their name, it must be suitable for the lecturer. It must also be suitable for the students, so that it is easier. It is easier. It becomes easier. So the system or whatever tool that you're using for as a control measure must be suitable to everybody. Because if you bring about a complex system, then people are not going to be, you're not going to meet your standards. Remember, people are going to make mistakes. Remember, people are going to do what? To be ignorant about it. So it must be suitable to people. The next thing, it must be what we call timeliness. It must be have what we the factor of timeliness must be there. So what do we mean by saying timeliness and far looking? We mean that it should be in such a way that it can enable one to understand the deviations and failures. The system must be able to enable you to know your deviations, where you are going wrong, and your failings, where you are failing. And therefore, it should be able to make or to take immediate corrective action. So it must be there to make immediate corrective action before the problem occurs. So if you can have a system that can, number one, can be able to enable you understand the deviations and failures, and can also help you to do what? To correct the action, then that is the best control system. If it doesn't have those, then just know that chances are you might not be able to meet the standards as far as the organization is concerned, or as far as a person is concerned. Another thing is the system must be objective and comprehensible. must be objective. When you talk about objectivity, it should not be biased. Comprehensible, it should be understood. So here we are saying, so the system used in control of human behavior should be of utmost objectivity, and it should be understandable. Objective controls will always specify the expected results in a clear and definite terms, which may leave very little room for further argument. So therefore we are saying that your system, therefore we are saying that complicated control may confuse and not work. So when you're coming up with a system, come up with a very simple system, like a class register. A class register is a very simple what? Control tool. A student just write his name, his registration number, then you go to week 1, lesson 1, you sign. You just append your signature. That's a very simple control system. A biometric is a very simple control system. You just place your finger there, then the system records the time that you have come in and even the seconds that you have reported to work. It must be objective and comprehensible. The next thing, the system must be flexible. When you talk about flexibility, the system must be, like for example, you come to realize that there are some things that need to be done for you to, or there are some deviations that you have encountered, then the system must be in such a way that you can be able to do what? To change it. You can change it to fit the need. Like the class register can be changed to fit the need of a particular class. For example, if a class is of 5 people and my class register has got 3 lines for 3 students, then it must be in a way that I can be able to add more students to sign. If I have 100 students, then the register must be put in such a way that it can accommodate 100 students, it can accommodate 1 student, etc., etc. If the system is in such a way that it cannot accommodate more, then something needs to be done. So the system should be flexible so that it can be adjusted to suit the needs of any change in the environment. Another thing is that it must be prescriptive and not operational. So number 5, it must be prescriptive and not operational. So what do we mean by saying prescriptive and not operational? We mean that in order for control to be effective and accurate,
You are
it
currently
should
the only
not
person in this conference.
continue. So we are saying that the system must be prescriptive and not operational. So when you talk about prescriptive and not operational, we are saying that in order for control to be effective and accurate, it should not only detect deviations from standards, it should also provide for solutions to the problem. So it should also provide solution to the problem that caused the deviation. So in other words, we are saying that the system should be prescriptive and operational. Hence, it must disclose where failures are occurring from and who is responsible for them and what should be done about them. Therefore, it must focus more on action than on information. The other thing is that it must be acceptable by the organization. The system must be acceptable by the organization. So when you talk about operational by acceptable by the organization, is that the organization should generally accept, I mean, it should actually be accepted to all members within the working environment. In the case of managing an organization, when standards are set unilaterally by upper level managers, there is a danger that all the top people or all the people in the organization may regard those standards as unreasonable and unrealistic. So it is always good that when you're coming up with something, a standard in an organization, let everybody in that particular organization be able to accept that particular standard and actually come up with what we call with their own reasons as to why they accept it and reasons as to why they don't accept. So therefore, it must be something that should be acceptable by the organization. Another thing, control must reveal expectation at strategic point. Control must reveal expectation at strategic points. So controls must reveal expectations at strategic points. And here we are saying that small expectations in certain areas of human behavior actually may have great significance than larger deviations in other areas. But one may quantify the reasons and ways of measuring them. Therefore, standards are too hard to comply with and may cause the performance of the people to decline in an environment. So therefore, make sure that the control system must be able to reveal expectations at a strategic point. It must, what is expected of you? Like a student, what is it expected of them? Like when we give a register for you to mark, we expect that you must be present 70, you must be present 70, as far as you must score 75% as a student as far as attending classes are concerned. So people must be aware of what they should or what they are supposed to do or to what they are expected to achieve or what they are expected to do. The next point and the last one is the control system must be should motivate people to higher performance. By this we mean that this control system of ours must respond to challenges successfully. It must also meet tough standards and may as well provide greater sense of accomplishment than meeting an easy standard. We can therefore say that if a target is tough than it seems, then the control system must be able to discourage such kind of motives that is causing that standard actually in a society or in an organization to decline. So a good control system, in short, we are saying it should be economical, it should be affordable, and it should not go beyond the allocated budget. Don't go and buy a control system that is so expensive. But when you look at what the organization is bringing in as profit, you come to realize that you'll be left in debt Therefore, we are saying that a good control system should be economical, it should be affordable, and should not go beyond the allocated budget in a particular organization. Stephen, I stop there as far as this topic is concerned. I can see we are the only people that we are remaining, I and you. So Stephen, kuna swali?
Hakuna.
So if there is no question, I'm going to tick the register, and before I tick the register, I'm going to open the notes as we speak. So notes on topic 3, I've already opened them. You can download them. So because we don't have any question, we will stop there for today. We meet next week.
You are currently the only person in this conference.